This is the Waykar 155-pint commercial dehumidifier. In a week it took my damp, musty workspace from sticky and smelly to dry and comfortable, and I stopped babysitting buckets. I would describe this as a commercial-grade dehumidifier made for large, stubborn spaces. If you have a big basement, a workshop that always feels clammy, a storage area with rust and mildew creeping in, or a pool house that never quite dries out, this is the category you should be looking at. I moved to it after smaller home units kept tapping out or overflowing, and the difference in control and consistency has been obvious. The design is straightforward in a good way. It is a metal box with a black and white finish that does not scream industrial eyesore, but it does feel solid. It is heavy, around 80 pounds, but the way it moves matters more to me than the number on the scale. I roll it around on a rough concrete floor and tile without a fight, thanks to oversized rear wheels and front swivel casters that have a real brake. The brake actually holds it in place when I am pulling on hoses or nudging it into a tight corner. The handle is big enough to grab with gloves on and gives me leverage when I need to pivot it. The front access panel pops off with a gentle pull, and the magnetic closure snaps back with no fiddling. Behind that panel is a washable filter that I can rinse in the sink. Not having to buy replacement filters over and over is one of those small things that makes daily ownership easier. Setting it up felt less intimidating than I expected. I have used plenty of home dehumidifiers, but a commercial unit with a pump and hoses sounded complicated. It really was not. The control panel is simple, with a clear readout for humidity and temperature and big buttons for power and humidity up or down. I set a target, walked away, and it went to work. The timer goes up to 24 hours, which is handy. I use it to run overnight or to shut off after I head out. If you only need it in bursts, the timer saves you from treating it like a chore. The included pump hose is long enough to reach a utility sink on the other side of my room, and if I want to keep the setup basic, the gravity drain hose gets the job done. I will admit, I needed a couple of tries to seat the pump fittings perfectly tight the first day. Once I figured out the angle and gave the clamps a firm squeeze, the connections were solid. Day to day, using it feels refreshingly uneventful. I turn it on, set a target, and it stays on task. The airflow is strong, but it does not rattle or buzz like the older units I have owned. For something this capable, the noise is surprisingly low. I can still have a phone call in the same room without raising my voice. If I push it to the absolute edge in a very wet spell, I can hear it more, so I keep it in a utility area when I know it is going to run flat out. In normal cycles, it fades into the background. What matters most is how effectively it pulls moisture and stabilizes a big room. In my basement shop, the concrete walls used to feel damp to the touch. After a week, they felt dry and stayed that way, even after a few rainy days. I had rust that crept onto the edges of my table saw and hand planes. That stopped. The musty smell I always tried to cover with fans and open windows just faded away. I did not hover over a water bucket because there is no bucket to empty. The internal float triggers the pump, and it sends water into the sink whenever it needs to. I checked the hose placement every few days at first, mostly out of habit, and everything stayed put. I also pushed it in colder conditions. When the temperature dipped in my basement, I saw a little frost on the coils one morning. The machine handled it on its own with auto defrost. It paused, cleared the ice, and returned to steady operation. Protection features are not flashy, but they matter when you run heavy gear every day. Overload protection gives me confidence during thunderstorms, and memory recall means if the power blinks out, I do not need to reset anything. It starts back up with my previous settings. Maintenance has been easy. The washable filter snaps out. I rinse it under a tap, and it slides back in without any drama. In a woodworking area where sawdust drifts into everything, that washable filter alone has been worth it. Swapping filters constantly is a pain and an ongoing cost, and here I just clean and keep going. I check the wheels for debris and wipe down the exterior when it gets dusty, and that is about it. One real test for me came after a small water leak from a utility sink. It soaked the corner of the room and wicked up into a stack of boxes. I dried what I could by hand, moved the boxes, and set the Waykar to a low target humidity. I left the gravity drain hose in place that day and let it run continuous with the timer off. By the next afternoon, the floor was dry, and the room did not have that lingering wet smell that usually takes days to clear. I used the built-in pump the rest of the week because I wanted the water out of the house as fast as possible, and it just kept up. Another scenario that showed me the difference between this and the smaller machines was a week of heavy rain. The air in the basement always turns sticky and you feel it on your skin. I set the timer to run overnight, set a target humidity that I know keeps my tools safe, and went upstairs. In the morning, it was just steady, dry air. The house smelled neutral, not perfumed or hot, just normal and dry. My little hygrometer showed a consistent drop each night, and it stayed stable during the day. There are a couple of trade-offs worth knowing. Carrying this up and down stairs is not fun. It is doable with 2 people, but solo it is a workout. Once it is on a level surface, the wheels and handle make moving it simple. Also, when it is working its hardest, you will hear it. It is not harsh or whiny, but it is not silent either. If you are very sensitive to sound, park it in a room nearby and let it circulate air into the main space. And like I said, the first hose hookup took patience. I would rather mention that now, so you set aside an extra 10 minutes the first time you plumb it. There are features that feel genuinely thoughtful. The choice between gravity drain and a built-in pump lets me adapt it to whatever room I am in. The long hose makes it easy to reach a drain without rearranging the space. The timer is simple, not buried in a menu. The filter door with magnets is a small touch, but it makes cleaning painless. Overload protection and memory recall do not change the way it looks or sounds, but they save headaches in real life. Auto defrost kept me from worrying about frost on the coils in winter. When I had a question about the hose routing, support got back to me quickly with a clear answer, which gave me confidence that if something goes wrong, I can get help. The warranty is 5 years, and for a piece of gear that will run for hours a day, that matters. If you want something for a small bedroom, this is overkill and too large. If you need to carry a dehumidifier up and down 2 flights of stairs every weekend, be prepared for the weight. But if you have a big area that never really dries out, and you are tired of emptying buckets and babying smaller units, this feels like a solid upgrade. It has been reliable, easy to live with, and strong enough that I can set it, check the hoses now and then, rinse the filter once a week, and focus on the work I actually care about. So here is how I would sum it up. This is a commercial machine that fits right into home use when the space is large and stubbornly damp. It moves easily on its wheels. It is straightforward to set up. It runs quietly enough to keep you comfortable, and it pulls moisture fast without constant supervision. The water management options are flexible, the protections are smart, and the maintenance is simple. I recommend it for workshops, large basements, storage areas, and pool houses where you need dependable moisture control day after day. If you enjoyed this video or have questions about how I set mine up, tell me in the comments below. If you want more practical, hands-on reviews like this, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.